I'm going to go ahead and just show this. So there's a lot here. So I thought people might be interested in who I am and why I'm talking today. But y'all can refer to me as Bam because Bertram Allan Mullin takes forever to say. And looking forward to talking to y'all. Let me know where you're from and what your interest is, even if it's education or not. If you're interested in my hairstyle, for example.
Okay, yeah, you want to do that through the chat, and then we'll just
start
in a couple of minutes.
So let's get started. Tristan, if there's any questions in the chat, could you please let me know, because I can't, I would have to exit to look at it through PowerPoint, so it'd really help. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's great to talk to all of you. I'd like to see you, but it's not possible because there's a lot. I'd like to acknowledge some people and places that were involved. This is being recorded, so if you miss anything, go ahead and look back at the recording later on. Please mute, and some questions might have to wait until the end if we have time. Okay, so please choose a question. There's no right or wrong answer. You could put it in the chat if you'd like, the answer, or save it until the end, your response to it. I think it'd be fun if you saved it into the end for your response as well, but it's also fine if you put it in the chat. I'm gonna move slides in 5 seconds. Okay, so again, welcome. Yes, this is listed on the program as a fun phonetic sound pronunciation strategy for English learners in Japan, but I changed the title about 20 times. So the most recent title is The Importance of Teaching Language Sounds in EFL. While teaching for 6 years in Japan, the topic of phonemic sound structure and phonology have become interest because there is a problem with how the sound system is treated in Japan and in other places. There's also room in academia for more exploration on the subjects, which I have been pursuing in my recent studies. Also note that there are convenient definitions on the slides. And as mentioned, this is being recorded in case you'd also like to criticize me in private, or you could have wine with your friends and laugh at me. It's totally fine. It's welcomed, as is your feedback. There's going to be a feedback form link at the end, and I would really like to see what you have to say. Okay. So kind of a thinking question, which you can unmute and say 1 or 3 words of what you think of this question. What are babies doing regarding language during their first 12 months? I'm going to change slides in 15 seconds.
You want me to read the chats, Bam?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Just right out interrupting you is okay. Okay, started with listening and listening.
Awesome.
Listening.
Cool. So mostly we got listening. Awesome. Okay, so a few years ago, I was reading Lightbound and Spada and found out that babies start to talk around 12 months or so typically. And it got me wondering, what about the first 12 months of a baby's life? Is the infant sitting there like a silent little angel, or is it a demon spawned from hell to torment everyone around it with all these sounds? And some might say that for about a year of a little angel demon's life, the baby is nonstop shrilling at a parent. However, some of you are probably well aware that in actuality, these tiny monsters are both attempting to communicate and they're practicing sounds before forming meaning. So yeah, they're doing a lot of listening and observing. Many of you said.
Mimicking too.
Yeah, that's great, mimicking. So consequently, like mimicking that. Consequently, children get about a year of distinguishing the sounds around them naturally, all the while listening to their native language, most of which consists of their parents shouting, stop shrilling at me, which leads to some mimicking, like you mentioned. Yeah. So,
monsters, they say.
Yeah. So please don't yell at your children, everyone. So that said, my question of the day that I hope you'll ponder is, why is there so much reliance on a first language sound system for a second language sound system? Yeah, so that's something I hope you'll all ponder about. And some features transfer from one language to another, while others don't. Simple logic does transfer. The past of watch, for example, becoming watched, well, that transfers in Japanese. because the past of miyamasu is miyamashita. So that's watch and then watched. And a lot of times we have in Japanese, they go, okay, so we have shita, which means the past, and you have ed, which means the past. So of course, that must mean that in English, a past word is always ed. I understand English now, it's great. And then they come across this problem. Research shows that sound doesn't transfer, and other researchers argue that in addition, all these different rules really confuse learners. And then you end up with learners saying things like closes instead of close. And someone please tell me, what do they say instead of watched in Japan very often? Okay, do they say watched? Okay, that's what I hear a lot of. So although that ed rule I mentioned was easy to understand, the way the word sounded didn't transfer. My argument is that if learners know the sounds before they learn the words, it might be not so hard to conquer all of these challenges they come across. And it's going to really help them when they know the sounds first. Alternately, some people teach phonics, which is a great strategy. L2 students can do this and drill words and blend it with sounds, like they have a duh plus og, and they form dog. They do it over and over, learning sounds and words blended together. But I want to note that these are alphabetic sounds and they're not pronunciation. They're not like phoneme sounds. So they're a little different. But it can be a fun activity. A nation posited that the phonics system helped with phonemic awareness. And that's a good step. Nation's written a lot about language and pronunciation. He's a really good author to read if you haven't. The only problem with learning phonics is students skip these natural sounds I've been talking about in their new language, and they jump away from vital sound system processes, leaping into new words. This is a dog, da-og, dog. It means inu in Japanese. Okay, next word. So the student has this new word, they've memorized it, it's been emphasized that the word is what's important, not the sound. They've jumped ahead on their merry way. And then they say dogu. They're relying on their L1 sounds because they weren't taught the importance of the L2 sound, rather the sounds of the letters. And again, that's not the same. And unfortunately, these days, learners depend on L1 phonology, and you get L2 memorized responses, such as, I really like eating a nice bowl of lice, or I'm feeling really lazy today. And then to add things to that, there's a stigma I've noticed in teaching in Japan that sound system practice is thought of as something only children learn. So adult lessons rarely practice sound systems or even sounding out words. Some schools do, and but a lot don't. So perhaps in the future, we can remove the stereotype of having students, no matter their age, as Underhill argues, practice sounds when they learn a language as the first step. I'll go on to the next slide about that, but I hope that this doesn't scare any of you away. So on this first slide is this is from Underhill's website, and the first one is from the UK, as you can see. The second is from the US. So I have an easy question. I hope someone will answer, but it's okay if you're all shy today. How many letters are in the English alphabet?
26.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. So of course you know that, 26, right? Now, does anyone know about how many sounds are in the phoneme chart?
44.
Yes, 44. You can Google this easily and find 44. I've found variances between 40 to 44, but 44 is the answer I get to. And the US varies as well because we tend to skip some things, which isn't always bad. But so as such, we teach one sound system when we want to teach it, and then the UK teaches another. But it's the same sound system. It's just the US skips some. And what the point of showing you this is, if we teach the 26 letters, well, why aren't we teaching the sounds? Skipping this leads to us thinking some people believe they eat lice, or we think, oh, I don't want to correct them because because that's rude. I just want to let them continue saying that and making a mistake. And I know that this chart looks intimidating. I think if you're going to teach the sound system from using this, I'd show it to older students, so they're impressed that you can read this cryptic thing. And what you'll wind up doing too is removing the stereotype that the sound system is childish. So you find a learning tool online that your students can listen to. I'm going to provide a link, but there's a lot of tools. Okay, so let's get into being students. Your student would listen to the sounds, and you, if you skip showing them the intimidating chart, maybe show them an ABC chart, or don't show them this, and you can just have them close their eyes and repeat sounds, which actually I found is very effective in lessons. If you want to explain what you're doing, you can say, this is like phonics, but it's only for sounds. So this step one for us would be to listen to this from one letter to R, Ra, the Ra sound. I'm just going to play it here, but I'll provide a link in a document at the end. Please shut your eyes and meditate to the sounds, listening and attempting to mouth the words. Okay. Okay, thank you for listening to all that. The point of it was to show the sound system sounds. You might have noticed that L and R are different. I guess native speakers know that too, but people studying in Japan might not. The L and the R get confused. So the sound you heard for L was L. The sound for R was Ra. Well, your students might not know that in this part of the world. And once they do, the sounds will be more distinct and easier to make out. So if you're having learners who have issues saying these two letters and distinguishing them, they might just be able to see the difference. Okay, so the next step is you would hear them again, but it's a writing step, and so it's a reading and writing activity. But note that a limitation is the way I hear a sound might be different than the way you hear it. So a way to teach it would be to give your version of how you perceive the sounds so that students can read it and maybe practice writing it. And then they would read it. And during this, you take out a notepad and try to ignore the video, because as native speakers, we ignore the sound, how the sounds look as well. And for a new challenge is the speaking part. You listen to these sounds, avert your eyes from the symbols, and you write what you hear. Well, you don't necessarily have to write, but speaking is what's important for this part. I'd like for any volunteers to unmute and say these sounds with me. We're not saying what they look like, we're saying the sounds. Okay, ready? Ah.
Ah.
N.
Na.
E.
E.
G.
G.
Ga.
The.
The.
Ba.
Ra.
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 Ma.
Ma.
Thank you, volunteers. Y'all were awesome. Okay. So the next part, and you can open your eyes if any of you have your eyes closed. Let's say some sounds that are based on words on our last fun sound part. And to make it interesting, I've added some words you might use for adult lessons or just older students. All lessons, you start with simple words, and then you gradually make it more difficult so that your students feel challenged and motivated. And I would keep sounds and words relevant to each other so that the lessons make sense, rather than teaching all the sounds at once, teaching some and then some more during another lesson. So I'll say the following and you try too. Feel free to close your eyes and repeat the sounds. Rice.
Rice.
Clothes.
Clothes.
Watched.
Watch.
Little angel demon.
Little angel
Angel
demon.
Good. Pulchritudinous.
Pulchritudinous.
Wow. Okay. Omnium gatherum.
Omnium gatherum.
All right, great. So perhaps some of you for the last two accessed a mental sound chart in your minds before attempting the last two words. And unless you were already familiar with them, that is, you might have speedily practiced the sounds before uttering them without noticing. And that's exactly what could happen if your students continuously incorporated sound practices through your activities. And that's when they have problems with sounds especially. Remind your learners who get frustrated that native speakers spend 12 months before they even use the sounds correctly as words, studying them and practicing. And so I think that that'll help them build more confidence and speak more clearly. Thank you. Now we are open to questions.
All right. I just had a comment from earlier on playing the video saying it's really hard to tell what some of these sounds are just from listening.
Yeah.
It's more helpful to see the speaker's mouth moving. I felt the same way. I couldn't make out a couple of them.
Yeah, so that would be a good limitation to point out for something online. And I think that looking at a speaker's face instead of a slide might actually fix that up, because then you're looking at someone's mouth moving. So that's a wonderful point. Thank you, Alan. Oh, someone answered the watch it question in the chat. Thank you, MF.
Watch it.
Oh, not monsters. Excuse me. That was that was a very bad joke. I see. Let's see what else. Yeah, mimicking is a really good way to put it. They're mimicking sounds, and so the point of saying monsters is that's what other people say. But I was pointing out that someone who knows it, like Gideon does, knows that they're not monsters. They're just practicing and they're trying to speak and communicate. But and the point of the joke was this is what other people say. It wasn't to call children monsters, because I know that they're just practicing and trying their best. Yeah. I want to thank everyone for coming. Is there anything else?
Just a thought, maybe get some discussion going about well, about pronunciation, and you mentioned the LR and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of students that even with years of focused practice trying to distinguish the sounds, they still have trouble with it. So it's clearly a lot more than, I mean, awareness is kind of a first step, and then the practicing, like you said, focusing on the sounds. But even then, even when people get to very, very high levels of close to bilingualism, they still might have trouble distinguishing sounds at that level.
Yeah, and I've heard that has a lot to do with L1 and L2 transfer, and that it's interfering. So it comes to accents and dialects. But maybe your students are gradually getting better and better without noticing. Yeah, because who notices their own improvements? And I've seen students get better and they still say they're not that good at English when they're speaking clearly. Yeah, that's a really good point too. Thanks, Tristan.
So I have a question actually. Hello.
Hello, Shumi. Okay.
Yeah, Shumi. Yeah, I'm from Ashgaga. Actually, I've been teaching for elementary school in Ashgaga. So I always see the problem actually when they pronounce the letter C and L, they always feel trouble with it. They say she, and ru, the pronunciation of L, they say ru. So what can I do with it? How I can make it clear to them actually? So I've been still trying with it. C and L, they say always she and aru. So like doru, or there's some problems with it. So how can I help them with it?
Thank you for that, Shumi. I think that you brought up part of the L1 using L1 sounds to the L2 transfer issue that I was bringing up. A lot of these students are saying she, like the kanji, not kanji, hiragana, she.
Yeah.
And then they're making the sound out from ru, which is another hiragana that they learned, and they're using L1 sounds for L2 words, and that's what's interfering. So I would recommend going back and teaching the L2 sounds. And they're not going to get it right away, but but I think that it helps a lot, and I've seen it help learners.
Thank you.
Yeah, how can we teach it during a pandemic? Does that answer your question?
Sorry?
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I also want to provide a link, not a link, but a document on all these references and some helpful tools that might help you. Let's see, that's here. It has all the links from today along with the feedback form in there. Oh, it's not doing it. It says, so let me just open it up and add it in the chat with all of it. It's going to be a lot of stuff though, I'm sorry. But I'll just give you the links. If anybody would like the other stuff, you can email me.
Okay.
To the references, because it's not sharing the rest. There you go. There are some links, and that's my emoji. All right.
All right.
Okay, so how can we teach sounds during the pandemic when we wear masks? Yes, so that's something where when someone can't see your mouth moving, how do they get the sound from watching your mouth? And I think that those glass shields that people are wearing really helps with that. So perhaps wear one of those if that's an issue. Yeah, and let's see, Bree brought up, I think one of the challenges, having found the variations in English pronunciations and what students have been exposed to. Yeah, I think that comes down to dialects. So I have a different accent than other people from America. And if they're having problems understanding accents, well, you point out, do I sound the same as someone from Australia? And then they say, oh no, and then they start noticing that we all sound different. But in Japanese, or I guess Korean also, it's sort of it's flat, not so much in Korean, but they're also kind of flat, where they sort of sound the same if they're singing. But if you listen to an English chorus, they don't sound exactly the same. There's sort of a difference based on their accents. So that's a good question too. Great. Thanks for coming, everyone. If you have any more questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pam. That was wonderful.
Thank you very much. It was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Another muted applause for Pam. All right. Thank you. All right.